If you really want to lead a country, you can't just sit behind a desk and send others to die. You have to be ready to risk your own life too. That's exactly what President Ibrahim Traoré believed. And just hours after saying those words, he disguised himself and joined a secret mission against Burkina Faso's most dangerous terrorist camp, deep underground in the presidential palace's war room in Ouagadougou. The air was tense. The young president, still in his 30s, stared at satellite images. Years of military life had trained his eyes to notice things most wouldn't. How many civilians are being held? He asked without looking up. His top general, Woodruff, cleared his throat. At least 40, Mr. President. Mostly women and children from Solhan and Traoré. We think they're being used as human shields. This terrorist base near the Mali border had been a ghost maker for years, attacking villages, mining sites, and military posts. 3 failed missions had already left dozens of soldiers dead. Still, it stood untouched. Defense Minister added grimly, they're armed with heavy weapons, probably from Libya. They've got lookouts and escape routes. It's a death trap. Traoré remained quiet. He traced a finger across the map. And the hostages there, said the general, pointing to a set of structures. Northwest edge. Then Traoré made his move. I've decided. Operation Desert Hawk starts at 0200. Special Forces Team Alpha will lead. Mission priority. Save the hostages, then wipe out the camp. Heads nodded. Expected. What came next was not. I'm going with them. Dead silence. Then chaos. Mr. President, you can't. That's insane. You're the head of state. But Traoré raised one hand. The room fell silent. I won't ask my men to risk what I won't. This is too important. I need to see the truth with my own eyes. General Ouagadougou stepped forward. He wasn't just an officer, he'd trained Traoré. He tried again. Sir, if you die, it's not just personal, it's political collapse. Chaos. Traoré's eyes softened. I understand, but what message do we send? That our leaders are cowards. That we hide while others die. No, a real leader bleeds with his soldiers. He turned to the map again. I won't command in the field. Captain Zeta stays in charge. I'll observe, I'll fight, but I won't interfere. Minister Kabor knew that look. It was over. The decision was final. So he shifted gears. We need protocols. Communication, emergency extraction, backup plans. Agreed, said Traoré. And one more thing no one outside this room can know. The official story. I'm visiting the eastern provinces. The meeting dragged on 2 more hours. When it ended, Traoré asked General Ouagadougou to stay. They were alone now. You don't have to do this, Ibrahim, the older man said quietly. You've got nothing to prove. Traoré stood by the window, staring at the fading sunset. It's not about proving, it's about remembering. How can I send kids into battle if I forget what battle feels like? Then his voice changed. And something's wrong with this camp. 3 failed missions. Against 1 position. Our army is better than this. Ouagadougou raised an eyebrow. You think there's more going on? I know it. Their tactics are changing their weapons to advanced, to clean. Someone's backing them. I need to find out who. Later that night, Traoré sat alone, writing 3 letters, 1 to his sister, 1 to his closest advisor, and 1 to the people of Burkina Faso, marked open only, if I die. Just after midnight, he changed into unmarked military fatigues. No badges, no rank, a knock. His security chief entered. The transport is ready. Mr. President, Team Alpha's waiting. Thank you, Kabor. Remember, if anyone asks, I'm asleep in my room. They drove in a plain vehicle. No sirens, no motorcade. At the base, inside a dark hangar, 24 elite soldiers were prepping. Captain Zeta approached, stern and uneasy. Mr. President, I respect you, but I have to officially say, I don't think you should be here. I hear you, Captain Traoré replied, but I'm here. Now tell me the plan. For the next hour, he was just another soldier. No president, no politics. Just gear checks, hand signals, and silent tension. Whatever was waiting in that camp, he wanted to face it himself. Not from behind a screen, but from the front lines, where truth doesn't lie. It was the only way to avoid detection. From there, they'd march on foot through brutal terrain, jagged rocks, dried-out riverbeds, and sharp winds. They would approach from the east, where the cliffs offered some cover. At exactly 1:30 hours, 2 Black Hawk helicopters lifted off into the night, carrying President Ibrahim Traoré and the 24-man team Alpha toward help. Inside the aircraft, the mood was heavy. The silence wasn't just professional, it was tense. Everyone felt it. Their president was going to war beside them, and no one could say it out loud. But every man knew the risk. If he died, their country might fall apart. Traoré sat quietly, calm like a soldier about to enter a kill zone. His old instincts kicked in. The only noise over the coms was military code. When the choppers touched down near the extraction ridge, the team slipped into darkness. No fanfare, no light. Gone in seconds. The march began. Under a moonless sky, the team moved like shadows. Traoré was dead in the center. One of them, his night vision goggles painted the terrain in eerie green. rock, dust, thorny brush. It was the kind of landscape that had shaped warriors and graves in Burkina Faso's north for decades. After 2 hours, they reached the high ridge overlooking the camp. Captain Zeta motioned them into observation positions. Traore crawled next to him and raised his high-powered binoculars. Something felt off. Right away, the camp below was bigger than the satellite images showed. Buildings were arranged in circles. Armed guards walked the perimeter, but not like professionals. They were too relaxed, too careless. Those guards aren't following security protocols. Traore whispered. Zeta studied the patterns. You're right, they're too casual. Like they're not expecting an attack. Or Traore cut in. They are expecting one. A cold knot formed in his stomach. Change of plans, he ordered. Thermal scan the perimeter. And send to scouts. To that northern ridge, I should see a sentry post. I see nothing. They waited. Minutes passed. Traore stared at the cluster of buildings where the hostages were supposedly held. No lights. No guards. No movement. Something was wrong. The scouts came back 20 minutes later. No hostiles on the northern ridge, sir, one reported. But we found this. He handed over a device. Zeta passed it to Traore. A high-tech motion sensor. European-made, not the kind of gear ragtag desert terrorists use. What about the thermal scan? Traore asked. The tech specialist hesitated. Sir, the buildings where the hostages were supposed to be, they're cold. No heat signatures. They re-empty. Traore's mind moved fast. Too fast. It's a trap. They knew we were coming. Abort the mission, he barked. Everyone, back to the extraction point. Blinding light. Suddenly, the ridge lit up like daylight. Then, the roar of vengeance. Voices yelling in Arabic, Fulani, and French. Ambush. Zeta shouted. Gunfire erupted. Bullets ripped through the night. The enemy had come from multiple angles. Well armed, well trained. This wasn't just some desert militia. Fall back to position Echo. Zeta ordered. That was their fallback site, a defensive point mapped out days earlier. Protect the HVT, someone yelled. The high-value target was the President. Traore moved fast, his training taking over. Stay low, conserve ammo, shoot, only when it matters. They hadn't gone far, maybe 200 meters, when a massive explosion tore up the path ahead. Then came heavy machine gun fire. Their escape route was cut off. They anticipated our fallback. Zeta yelled, we have to split. Traore didn't hesitate. Do it, now. Zeta quickly broke the team into three. Two would draw attention and retreat in separate directions. One would move with the president, but Traore stopped him. Going with Team 3. Zeta froze. Sir, that's the worst route. Protocol says, protocol won't matter if we all die. Traore snapped. They'll expect me to be with the best protected group. Team 3 has the hardest route. That's where they won't look. Zeta tried to argue. Traore shut it down. This isn't a request. I'm on Team 3. Minutes later, the president of Burkina Faso was moving with just 5 elite soldiers. No insignia, no backup, just the sound of distant gunfire and the endless desert ahead. If they were caught, no one would know. Lieutenant Sankara led them down a dried stream bed, cover from both sight and bullets. They used only hand signals, no words. Every movement was life or death. After nearly an hour, they reached a small cave, a safe house marked during mission planning. Sankara posted guards inside. They caught their breath. Status. Traore asked. Sankara checked his encrypted device. Teams 1 and 2 got out. They're heading to rally points. 2 casualties so far. 1, critical. Traore nodded. But his mind wasn't on the numbers. He had questions. Big ones. Why did the enemy have advanced tech? Who tipped them off? Why were French voices shouting during the ambush? And most important, who is really backing the terror in Burkina Faso? The silence inside that cave wasn't just tension. It was the beginning of something bigger. Minor injury. One serious, but stable. Traore nodded grimly. And the hostages? Lieutenant Sankara's face turned cold. No sign of them, sir. Captain Zeta scanned the entire camp on our way out. No civilians, no heat signatures. The hostage situation was fake. We were lured in. Of course, the pieces clicked into place. The mission hadn't been compromised midway. It was a trap from the very beginning. Anything else? Traore asked. We recovered shell casings and audio of the gunfire. Not local weapons. We heard FAMA's rifles and FN Minimes, both European, French and Belgian. European weapons, Traore muttered. In the hands of so-called regional terrorists. Interesting. He stepped toward the mouth of the cave, scanning the pale orange sky. Dawn was breaking. You saw the attackers? Yes, sir. Mixed unit. Locals in front, but also Caucasians. Military posture. Not mercs, trained soldiers. So, it was true. Foreign soldiers, likely French, maybe Belgian, operating illegally on Burkina soil. Not to fight terrorists but to kill a president. Traore turned to Sankara. This wasn't terrorism. This was state-sponsored, a clean hit, disguised as counter-terrorism. He was no longer angry, just cold, focused. Communications. He said, I need Defense Minister Kabar now. An operator opened a secure line. Traore didn't waste words. Minister, Operation Desert Hawk was a trap. European Special Forces were on site. I'm invoking protocol, sunlight. Authorization code, Sankara 7, Delta. The minister didn't hesitate. Understood. Are you safe? Yes. Extracting with Team 3 at the La Siete Treinta. Hold all reinforcements. The enemy is gone. This was targeted, not open war. Call ended. He turned to his men. New mission, evidence recovery. Shells, gear, boot prints, anything left behind. We show the world what happened here. Lieutenant Sankara stepped closer. Sir, may I speak freely? Go ahead. What you did tonight, coming here, was either insane or brilliant. But now I understand. You felt it? The setup. I didn't know what Traore said, but I knew it was too clean, too perfect. Real intelligence is always messy. At sunrise, they moved back through the rocks. The ambush site was clear. The enemy had pulled back, just as expected. They collected dozens of casings, fragments of military gear, and unmistakable NATO-issue boot prints. By mid-morning, they reached the extraction zone. A chopper was waiting. As they lifted off, Traore looked down at the land. Dry, scarred, familiar, a landscape shaped by centuries of foreign hands. And now, another chapter written, not in secret, but in daylight. Back in the capital, still in dusty fatigues, Traore called an emergency Security Council meeting. The evidence was laid out on the table. French and Belgian rounds, communication gear, satellite photos, NATO footprints. This wasn't a rescue, he told them. It was an execution. And I was the target. Defense Minister Kyber gave his report. Protocol, sunlight is active. ANO and ECOWAS have been alerted. Global media has the files. The French ambassador has been summoned. All eyes are watching. The national broadcast, Traore asked, ready, your approval is all that's left. He nodded. Schedule it, 18 o'clock hours. Prime time, every Burkina must see the truth. That evening, President Ibrahim Traore stood before the nation. He wore no suit, no medals, just his combat fatigues, still dirty from the mission. Behind him, a table scattered with shell casings, boots, and broken weapons. People of Burkina Faso, he began, his voice calm but firm. Last night, I joined our special forces on what we believed was a hostage rescue, but it was a lie. There were no terrorists, no hostages, only a trap carefully laid by foreign soldiers on our land. French, Belgian, trained, armed, illegal. He held up a bullet casing. This is a 5.56 millimeters round. Belgian fired from a weapon no terrorist in our region uses. We found dozens. And NATO boot prints. Let me be clear. This wasn't counterterrorism, it was a covert assassination. An attempt to remove your president because we chose independence. Because we said our gold is ours. Our soil is ours. He paused. The room was silent. They failed. We survived. And now, the world will know. The camera zoomed out, revealing the evidence in full. No words, no music. Just the sound of silence, and the beginning of something new. Methodically arranged. Let me be absolutely clear, Traore continued, his voice sharpening with restrained anger. What happened last night was not a failed mission. It was an assassination attempt thinly disguised as a operation. And the target wasn't just your president, it was our sovereignty. He paused, letting the weight of those words settle across the nation. Since our government reclaimed our gold mines from foreign control, since we chose to chart our own course, independent and self-reliant, certain powers have seen us not as partners, but as a threat to the system that has long exploited African wealth. Last night, they tried to eliminate that threat. Behind him, images appeared on the screen. Satellite photos showing the camp before and after the ambush. Tactical layouts, heat maps, sophisticated equipment far beyond the reach of any local terror cell. They failed, Traore said, and in failing, they revealed themselves. A moment of silence. Today, we have filed formal protests with the United Nations. We've shared our evidence with the African Union. ECOWAS has been briefed. And most importantly, we are telling the truth to you, the people of Burkina Faso. He leaned forward. To those foreign powers who believe they can still choose African leaders with rifles and drones, I say this. Those days are over. Our resources belong to our people. Our future belongs to us. And our sovereignty, he said, voice firm now, is not up for negotiation. He spent the next 15 minutes outlining emergency measures, diplomatic pressure, economic countermeasures, internal security, mobilization. He explained it all clearly, without fear. And then, he did something no one expected. Still wearing the dust-covered combat uniform from the operation, Ibrahim Traore walked out of the palace gates into the streets, where thousands had gathered after watching the broadcast. No armored cars, no distance, just a man among his people, a commander who had marched into a trap beside his soldiers and survived. The image spread like wildfire, a soldier president standing in the crowd, unshaken. In the days that followed, responses poured in. From Paris came denial. Fabricated, said one statement. Unsubstantiated, said another. Western media leaned on words like alleged and claimed. But in Africa, the message landed differently. Leaders from Mali, Niger, and Chad broke silence, offering full support. Some even hinted at similar experiences: covert operations, sabotage, political destabilization. A conversation long whispered in hallways now surged into the open. A week later, Ouagadougou International Airport welcomed 3 heads of state presidents from across the Sahel, meeting not with protocol or ceremony, but urgency. The summit was short, sharp, and historic. They formed the Sahel Resource Sovereignty Alliance, a pact to take control of their region's wealth, shared security, joint resource management, unified negotiation power against foreign corporations. The message: Africa would no longer bargain from a position of weakness. Inside the palace, Traoré spoke to the alliance's founding members. They thought one bullet could end our movement. What they failed to see is, this isn't about one man anymore. It's about a continent waking up. The ambush hadn't ended his mission. It had supercharged it. 6 months later, Burkina Faso's gold mines reported record production. Revenues flowed directly into public projects, hospitals, schools, clean water. When asked by a foreign journalist if he regretted joining that mission, knowing now it had been a trap, Traoré was blunt. I regret the danger my soldiers faced. I regret that foreign powers still think Africa can be controlled by violence. But do I regret being there myself? No, he paused. A real leader doesn't ask others to face danger he's unwilling to face himself. That night, when Traoré marched into a trap and emerged with the truth, became known simply as the President's March. It wasn't just a military maneuver, it was a message, a rebuke, a reckoning. The ambushment, to kill a revolution, had instead exposed a global game, and for the first time in decades, those playing it from afar were being dragged into the light. In European boardrooms and foreign ministries, a grim realization spread. Africa was changing. The tools of old manipulation, subversion, assassinations, were failing. A new generation of African leaders had emerged, unbought, unbroken, and unafraid. Traoré had learned the hard way. The road to real freedom would be long, dangerous, and marked by betrayal. But he had also learned something, else even the deadliest traps can be flipped if you're willing to walk through them first.